we have here. And speaking about me,
Actually, before we go to the next slide, so everyone sees the short RSVP link in there. If you didn't already complete that, please do so. You have about 48 hours after this event. And by completing that short RSVP form, you are able to then get a post-event email that has links to all the resources we're going to talk about. And then also, I've heard from some people who have completed that a recruiter reached out to them because of the information they provided, and lo and behold, they got a job here at Google. So please complete that form.
yeah, and you should receive that link in your school email address.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Okay. One second. Sorry, it's not loading. Give me 1 second.
Technical problem.
Okay.
Okay, so my name is Shazad. As personally know some of you, I have graduated from NAU in 2016, which is just 3 months ago. So here I work as I'm in Firebase team, and what I really like about Google is that people here are really kind, friendly, and super smart. So I guess that's my favorite thing about Google.
And then you don't know me because I didn't go to NAU, but my name is Catherine Chavez. I go by Kat, and I've been at Google a little bit over a year. I am part of the university programs team, which is the team that supports individuals like Shazad to do outreach at universities and colleges. I went to the University of California, Santa Cruz to get my bachelor's, and then to the University of San Francisco to get my master's. And my favorite thing about Google, it really comes down to two things. So one of them is the people. You really do work with fantastic people here who are just constantly working to improve themselves, to improve the team, innovative people, very smart people. And then with that, also the professional development opportunities that come from Google. They do provide formal opportunities like classes. They can subsidize your education if you go back for something specific to your profession. And also that innovative piece I mentioned earlier, there's always an opportunity for you to take on a project or try to solve a problem or look at some data because you're curious and want to. All right, so like Shazad said, we're going to cover a couple of things today. First, just a little bit of Google history. I'm sure all of you know about Google, so I'm not going to get into a lot of it. Then we're going to talk about some tips and guidance for how to make the most of your academic career, then roles and opportunities. I'll go into some resume tips, Shazad will help with interview tips, and then finally common mistakes in Q&A. All right, so first things first, Google. What is Google? Because you haven't heard about it before. So our mission has always been to ask the big questions and to build better answers. We did start out with one big question, which was how do we organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful? So we're now about 18 years into our journey. We just hit our 18th anniversary. And though we've seen successes and accomplishments, we know that we still have a long way to go. We still want every Googler today to think like a founder, to stay curious, to always look to make an impact. So it's not enough to ask the question, we need people who won't be satisfied until they help find the answer. So as you know, we started as a search company and we've grown to do so much more since then. Thanks to those Googlers questions that I mentioned earlier, we're now building better answers that today affect billions of people around the world across mobile, video, and advertising, to name a few. And we aim to build technology that helps people live happier and easier lives. Products that can change the way people access information, do business, learn, and connect with one another. So it's not about making money at all costs. It really is about doing the right thing for our users.
So speaking of building your skills, I want to take some time to talk about what do we expect at Google from students while you're still in school. So in freshman year, it's should take at least one CS course and one core math course. And you should be comfortable and able to code in at least one language. I do believe in NAU it is C language, and then the second class is Java. So you should definitely learn one object-oriented programming language, which is Python, Java, or C++. You should also be able to track down documentation. So it can be API documentation or something else. So it's a language, it's a common language that developers speak. Debugging. So if you have a small bug in your application, you should be able to know how do I find it, and fix it. And definitely work on CS projects outside of the classroom. It can be individual project, can be a project that your class manage, or you can work on like big open source projects. And you should be able to read and understand existing code, because for engineering practical position, as a freshman, you're given a code review exercise as a part of your interview process. So this is actually important skill to have. And then should have basic understanding of formal logic, things like programmatic logic, and be familiar with version control. It can be Git or SVN. So you can think about as of something that two developers can work on the same code. How do you do that? So you should use version control. So moving to sophomore year, will help you with your work on understanding data structures and algorithms. So I really want to start with the classes because I think they're one of the most important classes in CS. Be always proficient in one of these three programming languages, and keep working on several of these projects. As I told you, an independent project, team projects, or it can be a small contributor in a very large project, open source project. Okay, junior year. So we hope you build proficiency in multiple languages. You have a strong knowledge of algorithms, data structure, and you can apply and understand concepts like this, all different types of complexities. You should be able to know how to sort in different ways, know how hash tables work, trees, and graphs. Be familiar and have a strong knowledge with operating systems, and you should learn at least the basics of software design. So how do you make your code scalable? Yeah. And solid foundation discrete management. That's a very important class. Yeah, we have discrete management, but definitely take this class. Okay, junior year. So at this point, we hope that you are proficient in whatever we have discussed so far, and we hope that you have industrial level software engineering experience or internships. So that way we can see if you have a real practical knowledge of the things that you learn in the classroom applied to industry. To update your resume, definitely visit Career Center if you need any help in taking reviews for you. And spend some time on interview prep because this is super important. And if you still believe that you're real good at your classes, you should still spend some time preparing interviews. And definitely get advice and referrals from interns, alums, and just use your network to get their advice. Okay. So extracurricular. So in NTU we have ACM club. Definitely join it. I do believe we still have ACM women cybersecurity club. So these are some things that we have on campus. Definitely attend to hackathons and programming competitions. So I know in Houston there is CodeWeb, University of Houston based hackathon. and Texas, which is in Austin. And also ATM programming contest. It's done once a year, and we do have NAU, I believe, has a small group of people who are working on the same ICTC. App development. If you're interested in mobile apps, definitely join mobile app developer class. Because as far as I remember, SDM in NAU has multiple labs, and you can join whatever interests you. And as I mentioned before, open source projects, they're really helpful. You can see projects on a very big scale, and if you have a very rich GitHub profile, this can go a very long way. And you can think about it as your portfolio. You can show your work. And of course, online competition. So you can solve problems, Top Coder, CodeJam, HackerRank. So I think these are the most popular ones. And yeah, so you should practice solving problems in a limited time. Yeah, so if we just look generally how we hire, Google just made up great people. So we look for not just the result of your thinking, but we also look at the process of your thinking, because it's so important. Your leadership skills, of course, technical role-related knowledge, and what we call goodness. So goodness is Googly is an adjective which describes a person who is kind, friendly, who is very strong in his technical skills, and yeah, so this person will be a good person. So these are the kind of people we're looking for.
All right, so we're going to cover roles and opportunities next, and just keep in mind all that Shah just shared about how to prepare yourself while you're still in school. I know some of you are probably thinking, well, this is obvious, but in a second you're going to come to realize exactly why we shared all that information. All right, so let's look at those opportunities. First and foremost, are there a lot of students here who are going to be graduating this December or next summer?
Yes.
Show of hands, maybe?
Yes.
One.
If you're graduating this semester, not this semester, but this year. It's 1, 2, 3,
A good amount.
5, 6, 7,
Okay.
8. Yes.
So that means I should see that many people applying to this opportunity. So the engineering residency program is something that you would apply to once you are ready for a full-time job. Essentially, you get a full year under Google's wing to help you develop. Again, you have to have a CS degree or something related to that field, and you should be graduating in the next 6 to 12 months from now. Within that 12-month period, you would get about 8 weeks of classroom time, and you do get to work on real-world projects. You'd be rotating from team to team, project to project. So that classroom time would be kind of your foundation to help you refresh on CS skills that you built while in school, or to help you develop more of them. And then the rotational time would be the hands-on experience. I'm not sure what NAU's curriculum is like, but I know some are more theory-based than application, and so sometimes students find this opportunity, which we call NRES, as a great way then to get that application time. Keeping in mind that you're not only building your skills, but you're building confidence. You're provided with a support network, so you get a mentor, you get real-time feedback from the engineer managers that you're working with, the teachers. You start to build your network by working with a cohort of peers, so all the other individuals that are in this program for the office you choose. And really the goal for us is to have you convert into a full-time role. So yes, NDRES is full-time with a 12-month stipulation. But if you don't convert, that means that we didn't do our job. And luckily, I'm happy to report that we're seeing success rates of over 90%, and we're now in the 4th year of its running. Offices will change from year to year, meaning they will expand, but I know for a fact Seattle, New York, and Mountain View are just three of the locations that we're running this program at for this coming year. Applications are open now and they're subject to close in the spring, so you have some time to consider this. And you can apply to this while also applying to a full-time job. There's no harm in applying to two things at once. Now, for full-time, non-term limited contract roles, we'll start with software engineering, just because most of our roles are in this area. We have so many seats open up every year for software engineers. And so really the role of a software engineer is, like I said, it's the core of the company. And a lot of our students and interns come to be that. We refer to them as SWEs. Their role is to develop the next generation of code and technologies that will change how millions of users connect, how they explore and interact with information and one another. And although we are an incredibly large company, as a SWE, you are working with a smaller group. So your team could be anywhere from 3 to 10 to 12 people. And even if it's a larger end, like 12 people, you'll find that you only really work with 3 to 4 people on a regular basis for any given project at a time. So you have an opportunity to make major impact, even though we are an incredibly large company. So site reliability engineers are very similar to SWEs, but our engineers are also known as the world's most intense hit crew, because they're constantly working to make sure that our sites are up and running, that nothing crashes. So they keep Google going everywhere all the time. You will find that if you are an SRE, you may be put on call for rotations, but your call time would only be for a week, a 6-month period, if that. And fun fact is that Google actually was the first company to come up with the SRE role, and we have found that other companies are now replicating this role for themselves. Essentially, if the SRE person does their job, you will never notice, because you will never notice docs crashing, emails crashing, calendars crashing, whatever it may be. Their motto is that hope is not a strategy. Another one of our big roles is the software engineer tools and infrastructure, or SETI, and they are working to constantly improve products, to test for flaws, fix bugs before our products make it to users. So they are coding every day. They're not just testing, they're actually coding and using software design, analysis, and programming skills to build what we call a never before seen automated test system, again, to test the stability of all of our products. So at Google, some of our products launch on a weekly, if not a daily cycle. So our studies are extremely important to make sure we can keep up with that pace and launching stable products for our users. So IT is a little bit different. This is for all IT majors or individuals with an IT passion. It is a 26-month, so that's more than 2 years, a 26-month rotational opportunity that goes from full end of Google's IT. So making sure infrastructure is there and supporting Googlers on their technology. And at the end of the residency, you can find a full-time IT support role. Through ITers, you have a chance to work across many of our offices domestically and internationally. The same goes for the other roles that I mentioned earlier. While there isn't an internship available for IT, we do suggest that students prepare for this opportunity by taking on IT opportunities either at their school or local companies, coupled with doing well academically. All right, so switching gears a little bit, I'm guessing that everybody who didn't raise their hand has at least another year or 2 of school. So internships are more so for you. Starting with engineering practicum, this one is specifically for freshmen and sophomores. So if you're currently a freshman or sophomore, you would apply to this opportunity now for this coming summer. Engineering practicum internship is a 12-week summer opportunity, either in Mountain View, New York, or Seattle. You will be focused on not quite production level code, but you'll be working on a team still to help with different processes and systems. So similar to Andrea, you're taking what you've learned in school and applying it through this opportunity to further develop. Your engineering manager would be your mentor. And you would not be one-to-one, meaning one intern to one team. You would instead work in a pod of 2 to 3 peers. So maybe individuals from your school, maybe individuals from other schools across North America. It is paid, so you do get a salary for your 12-week time. Like I said, you work on a project, you are paired with individuals, and really the benefit is coaching. This is a great opportunity to launch your career. Applications open October 3rd, and they will be closing either early December, like December 2nd, or right around Thanksgiving. Very important to note is that all of our internships take applications on a rolling basis. So if you apply earlier, you're more likely to get an opportunity, whereas if you apply later, seats are more limited and competition could be higher. That's why there is a firm closing date, because those roles may in fact be closed before December 2nd. So apply early. While the rec isn't open on our google.com/student site, you can set up an alarm to get an email for when it is open. The other opportunity is our general SWE or software engineering internship program. So this one is one-to-one. You are working one intern to one team, and you are writing production level code. Again, it is paid, so you will have that opportunity to you. Start and end are a little bit flexible, so if you are wrapping up something for school and you start a little bit later, we can work around that. If you need to go back a little bit earlier, again, we can work around that. The application is September 19th, and like I mentioned, you'll only make to apply early. And this one can be done in a number of our domestic and international offices. That's something that you can explore if you're interested in, let's say, Tokyo or Zurich as an internship opportunity. Oh, I should mention, so the internship requires that you do go back to school immediately following it. So the earliest that you would be able to apply is if you are a current junior. If you're a senior but going to grad school immediately after, you could still apply. And we have 2 applications, one for bachelor's and master's students combined, and then one for PhD students, both opening on September 19th. All right. Keeping in mind what Suzat said earlier, this is where we're going to go into why it's important. Don't undermine the importance of your resume. This is really how you make your first impression at Google. You may have heard that we don't require cover letters. If you were to submit one, it's like a compelling story. So general tips, there are different formats that are generally accepted. My personal preference is PDF, just because that translates well across different applications. So whoever's looking at it will see it exactly how you intended it to be formatted. Keeping it simple and bullet points. So we don't want to see paragraphs of why a certain project you're sharing with us is important. We're looking at thousands of resumes a day. We want to see just the most important information. And one way to help capture our attention is using action words. So, for example, developed X, Y, and Z project, which then had this kind of impact or had this kind of review from my professor. Interns at such companies for whatever amount of time. Those bits of information will help your resume look stronger, and it'll help us move through it quicker. The other thing, like I was mentioning in my examples, is results. So sure, you had an internship, but what did you do during that time? Because I can guarantee that, 10 other people immediately following your resume that you also did internships. So what makes you stand out? What did you do at your internship? Were you there for 2 years in a row, 3 years in a row? And even if you were there only for summer, every single internship that you accomplished, every hackathon that you were part of, and so forth. Basic information includes your contact info. If you don't give us an email or phone number, we can't contact you. You can also include links to your LinkedIn or GitHub. That's another way for us to be able to look into what you've been able to accomplish on your own. And in general, stick to one page. Students, especially if you haven't had industry experience, it should not be longer than one page. And it's only relevant info. So if you're finding it going over one page, then maybe don't put that you or a waiter or barista at a certain company, because that's not directly applicable to any of the tech roles here at Google. And you know, the summer pass, that's the best. For education, because you are students, this should be listed first and foremost. Do not put this at the very end, because your foundation for your professional career is your academic career. So you want to see what schools you attended, full names please, because there are so many abbreviations that overlap. We want to see your degrees and majors, expected graduation date, so we know what roles to kind of keep you in mind for. Your GPA is very important. If you want, you can list overall GPA and then major GPA, because maybe your major GPA is higher. And if you don't put your GPA on, you will likely get put towards the end of the queue, because we're just trying to move the resumes sooner rather than later. That's not to say that your GPA is the most important, or that we have some kind of threshold where if you're lower than that, we won't look at you. This is just a piece of what we're looking at for individuals. We want those who did well academically and then also well outside of academics. If you have room on your resume, and just indicate courses that you think are beneficial to the specific role you're applying to, and a project, and then, like I said, a very brief description of the project, bullet points, why you're sharing it, and if possible, links. Then technical skills. So maybe you are a master of one coding language but are very familiar with others. List them all on there and indicate which ones you're proficient in versus which ones you're kind of starting off with. That way we also know which language to conduct your interview in. So experience. Like I said, we want to see individuals that are well balanced. So someone who did well academically and is also taking the time outside of the classroom to hone their skill set and to demonstrate a true passion for this work. So again, list it in chronological order, include any employers for your full-time jobs or internships, length of time at that company. Again, key descriptions, concise descriptions usually that get our attention. And where you see showcase results, those are just examples of some things that will help you stand out. One, for example, student group, indicate that, especially if you took on a leadership or officer role. Hackathons, coding competitions, even if you didn't win it, that's okay. We still want to see that you're taking the time to compete in these. If you placed, put that on there as well. All right, and then some additional information, extracurriculars, like I said, the student groups, placement in coding, if you were awarded any scholarships, especially those that pertain to your degree or potential career, any honors, publications, papers, or patents. That's more so for PhD students, so don't feel alarmed. But PhD students constantly publishing, and if you've gotten a patent, kudos to you. You are doing something well with your academic career. Same thing with conference presentations. That tends to fall more to PhD students. And then anything impressive that you did outside of school or outside of CS. So like maybe you made it to the highest degree possible for Boy Scouts, just Eagle. Don't quote me on that. But something impressive that you think also tells a little bit about your personality, feel free to include that. So we did cover a lot. We can take a little bit of Q&A now on all that we've covered, or we can save it to the end. Show of hands, who would like to do a little Q&A now? Okay, not all at once.
We'll continue asking questions now.
We can also reserve to the end if we don't have any yet.
Yeah, we can do that.
Just keep moving. Okay.
Yeah. All right. So now let's do it for the good stuff. It's technical interviews. So we're gonna talk about the public interview process. So here's the interview experience for full-time positions. So the first applying is taking coding sample and survey. So you'll have an opportunity to coding sample before you launch the real assessment test, and then you'll have 7 days to complete your coding sample and survey. If you do not get coding sample, then you will not be allowed to move forward to any next steps of the process, including potential offer letters. And if you know how to code, then obviously it shouldn't be difficult for you. If we decide to move forward after coding sample and survey, it's going to be a general process for a full-time position. So we're going to have 2 to 3 phone interviews, and if that we'll fly you out to one of our offices, and generally we will not have more than 5 on-site interviews. Unless it's a very rare case, so if you have 2 phone interviews, then you may have 3 on-site interviews. So, and the last step is community review, where we get all of your interview feedback, and then we'll take a look at it. So the interesting part is here, the people who review the committee is different from people who interview you. So it's dependent, they look at your resume, at your interview feedback, from a new perspective. So, and then if they approve your application, then even your offer, which is the best part of the process. And then, yeah. So then the next slide is about internship interviews, which is very similar to full-time. It's just slightly narrowed down. You will not have on-site interviews, it's just phone interviews, and then interviews.
I will add though that the recruiting team has recently decided to also include the coding sample for intern applications, only because, again, we want to know that you have the very basic information or ability to code before moving on with the rest of the process. So sorry that's not indicated here, it's a brand new update.
Mm-hmm. So interview format. So typically the interviews are either by phone or on-site. They last about 45 minutes each. So in the beginning you'll introduce yourself. You may talk about the resume, what kind of projects did you do. Then you'll have an actual technical assessment where you're going to be given a problem and you'll have to solve it. So if it's phone interview, you're going to be using Google Docs. If it's on-site, then regular whiteboard. And then you'll be able, you'll have a chance to ask any questions that you have in interview. And what you definitely won't see in interview is puzzle and brain-teaser questions. They don't really reflect your coding ability. So don't delete all those articles about the crazy, and we are not asking it. So what we're looking for is how do you actually track your syntax, which libraries do you know, how do you solve any performance issues, definitely algorithms, data structures, how familiar are you with them, and just your general analytical skills. So these are just a broad overview of types of questions that we ask you. I want to emphasize again algorithms and data structures. These are super important things, components of computer science. Don't like to spend all of your time just on one component here. You have to be familiar with everything. And move forward, and algorithms. So the types of questions that we may ask you is how would you sort, search, represent, solve, and then list the problem. And then we're going to ask you, once you give us your potential solution, we're going to ask you how efficient is it? Is it fast or is it slow? If it's not super fast, how can you improve it? What are the ways to improve it? So, in order to approach that, first of all, listen carefully to the problem and clarify any things that you did not get from here in the beginning so that you won't waste your time in the end. If you come up instantly with a very stupid and simple solution, say it. Don't be afraid to say it because that's the way how you start solving problems. Then you can ask questions, you interact with the interviewer, and later on you can consider some alternative approaches. But definitely start with something very simple and brute force, which is like the slowest solution ever. Still safe. Then you can recognize if the problems are similar, you can come up with a better solution. And interviewers, they're always there to help you. So they're probably going to give you some hints, and be careful with those hints. So during your interview, always keep your thoughts verbalized. So whatever you think, just say, think out loud and show your work. If you think that you need to draw something, then draw it and just explain to the interviewer what's happening in your mind. If you still prefer to think in silence, then just say so, and then summarize, but still it's not recommended to do so. And if you're really stuck, ask for help. They can help you. And yeah, you can treat interviewers as someone who are trying to help you, and you can treat those sessions as you're trying to solve a problem with your colleague, and they're just trying to help you. So it's not just one way. You can consider it as both of you are solving it. It's just helping you.
And you might find that because of limited time, you're not able to actually solve the problem in the 20-minute allotment. That's fine, and it's actually common, which is why verbalizing your thoughts is especially important. Imagine if you're quiet the entire time, time's up, and you haven't gotten anywhere near the solution. The interviewer is going to sit there wondering where you were going, not having any indication as to your ability.
Right. So how do you prepare before you interview? Start with reviewing fundamentals, core CS concepts, including algorithms and data structures. Should practice a lot on the whiteboard, share a doc, or you can have whiteboard on the paper. Just get a pen and paper and write code on the paper. And get used to thinking out loud, having your approach. If you just have a friend sitting next to you and during the time that you're solving the problem, just explain every step that you're doing. Definitely pick one strongest language and master it. So usually recruiters, they ask for your preferred language, and then during the interview you'll get to write code on this language, the one that you specify. So never write computer code, always write actual code. And if you need any special accommodations, just ask the recruiter in advance. Yeah, if you know someone who has any technical interviews, ask them their advice, ask for mock interviews.
And if you need more time to prepare, you don't have to schedule your interviews back to back. You can let your recruiter know that you'd like up to a month or so to do some additional preparation. So they're your advocate in all of it. Continue to communicate with them.
Yeah, so these are some things that we are looking for during the interview. So you can just skim through those. So, for example, did you miss any special edge case? Any special case? Let's say if an input to your problem is a string, what's going to happen if I give you an empty string? What's going to happen if I give you a null? Or what if it's going to be thousands? Just examples. So definitely think through those, and you can just talk to your interviewer about what's going to happen if one of these edge cases are going to be entered to your algorithm. And they also going to look at how, if they can hire you and if you're going to be in the same team, in their team, how pleasant would be work with you. Like if you're super smart, but you're not collaborating, you're not listening to anything I say, why would I want to work with you, right? So definitely be friendly, listen. It's just a discussion.
That's where Googling that's important.
Yeah.
All right, so let's do some questions now, because I'm sure there are some bubbling, and then we'll get into the practice problems.
Any questions?
Okay, we have one question.
How was your experience during the interview?
So did you hear that or?
No, can you repeat please?
Okay, he's asking your experience. How was the interview experience of yours?
My experience, I interviewed last summer, so I applied really early. I applied in August, and I had my interview in August. Um, um, yeah, I had 4 on-site interviews, and as I said, these were algorithms and data structure problems. It just all started with asking about my resume and introduction, and then I solved the problem. If you're really good, you solve one problem, they can give you another one. And if you're gonna solve like 1.5 problems, it's gonna be awesome. So, and even if you don't finish the problem, so you think out loud and you tell them the whole thinking process, and if they know that they may know that you reached like 90% of the whole solution, then it's very good too. If you think in silence, they will not be able to know. So yeah, it was mostly, I think everything was data structures and algorithms. They've asked me to do a little bit of testing. So I wrote the code on the whiteboard, and then they just asked me how would you test it? What kind of input would try test it? And I had one math problem as well, like probability or something. But yeah, it's all narrowed down to whatever we covered in the beginning. It's algorithms, data structures, and core case concepts. Any other questions? Alright, we can move on.
No? Okay.
Alright, so common interview mistakes that people usually make. So mainly jump to coding because think about the problem, think about how would you approach it. If you have any assumptions, ask about them. Clarify it with interviewer, because if you think about something and if your solution is wrong and you jump into the coding, you'll waste your time after we tell it this is completely wrong, right? But if you discuss with the interviewer and you decide that it's good, then you can go into coding. Yeah, you waste your time. You will not be able to get maybe hints if you discuss early on, and you may just lose motivation if you jump into the coding and then try to tell it doesn't look right, and then you'll start raising it and starting all over again. So just communicate with the interviewer. Not run through an example. So after you came up with an algorithm or one approach, pick a simple example and just like manually compile your code with that input. What's going to happen to your code? Is it going to explode, or like what's going to happen? You can think about 1 or 2 edge cases. Do not consider like all of them because you can lose time, but show that you're considering edge cases as well. And if you do have any assumptions about input, which I've mentioned, if you have a string as an input, can it be null? If I consider it not being null, then I will tell my interviewer, I'm assuming that my string will not be null or undefined, and then we can move on from that. And yes, don't waste too much time on examples because you're going to lose. Yeah, I like that one because I think a lot of people they tend to write pseudocode instead of writing actual code. So once you pick your most preferred language, you should be able to write any solution to any problem in that language. So if, but sometimes, let's say, use a hash map library with a very specific function, but you don't know how it's called. In that case, you can tell the interviewer, I know there's this function, but I don't remember exactly how it's spelled. You can just write it down and be good. So if there's unimplemented function, you can tell that. I assume I'll have that function here. But never mix real code with pseudo code. Because sometimes students, they write the hardest part in real code and the rest is pseudo code. Don't do that, please. This usually happens when you hear a problem and then you recall doing it somewhere else and you don't really get into the depth of the problem and you think that, oh, I know the solution. And then you directly start this explaining that. So it's not always true, because details may differ and the implementation may differ as well. So yes, look at your experience and any of similar problems. But we probably will not ask you just a raw solution to a problem that you may have seen in a book. So yeah, look at your experience, but do not assume that it's something that's already known. Yeah, don't think about optimization too much before you even have any code. Once you have like a basic code that is working, then you can think about any optimization. Because yeah, don't assume brute force is unacceptable. Start with brute force and then develop from that point. You can, once you're writing your initial solution, you can tell that I can optimize that later, but for now, just keep it that way, in a simple way. Just if you finish your code and then you'll have some spare time left, then you can optimize. Because sometimes students, they try to optimize too much in the beginning and they don't have enough time to complete the whole code. So they'll have one part optimized, but the whole thing is not working. This is bad. Yeah, so again, find edge cases. If you assume something, so it's gonna crash, fail, like you should about any case that would happen. If you have a hint, doing as an input, what's gonna happen if I give you integer instead of strings? Is it gonna blow up? If yes, then other things I assume that it's gonna be string something else. And always analyze complexity. If you first write brute force, then a better solution, tell what was the complexity of the initial solution and the complexity of the second solution, and how do you compare it. And you should be able to elaborate that, explain why like that. We can talk about some improvements and other approaches that you could have taken. Or if there is a more complex but better solution, you can tell about that too. If you have like a small syntax error, that's okay since you don't have a compiler, but try to write as much clean as you can. So, like you should be clean writing. If you're using whiteboard, practice it as well. If you forgot the small line between two lines, just write it on the side and then draw an arrow so it won't look fancy. Because on interviews, they tend to take a photograph of your code and attach it to your feedback. So that's important because other people, they will go through your code and try to understand what you wrote. So yeah, there are no shortcuts. You have to practice a lot, and whatever you have mentioned in your resume, be ready to answer questions or use whatever technologies you mentioned in that resume. Yeah, over communication is better than not communicating. It's better to talk too much than being silent. You know.
Alright, so for digital resources, I'm sure you can go back on your own. We have two things here. So first is our guide to technical development that was created by our tech student development team. If you go on there, you'll find that there are tons of resources for different areas of CX skills, some guidance on courses that you can take inside school, outside school, and so forth. If you wanted to, you could buy Cracking the Coding interview. I've heard 6th edition specifically, I've heard edition doesn't matter, but the person who wrote it is someone who's worked at big tech companies and has been part of the interview process. And so she went and wrote this book, and engineers have told me it has been such a savior in preparation for interviews. If you want to practice questions on your own.
To Cracking Coding interview, I read the exam and find it super helpful. Yeah, I had edition, and the book covers a lot of caveats and different approaches, and it's really helpful for the technical experience.
And I could be wrong, so don't quote me, but I think the technical development guide, which is the first resource listed, may indicate chapters that you should especially focus on in Cracking the Coding interview. Again, I'm not 100% sure, so don't quote me, but I know that was a rumor that was going around and they were revamping that guide. So practice questions, you can go to Top Coder, Project Bueller, and I know that those can be very challenging questions, so don't feel discouraged. If they are, these are just some suggestions. You can also practice on your own, work with your professors and see if they can throw you some practice problems for you to work on top of your classroom work. Leap code as well, like I was saying, those can be very difficult questions. So these are just some resources. As long as you fill out that RSVP form, that will summarize these resources specifically. So, if you're ready to apply, go to google.com/students. You can remove careers from that. The direct link is google.com/students. You can sort through internships, through full-time roles. You can even sort based on the degree that you're pursuing. So again, some of those applications for internships won't be open for a while, but you'll still be able to find the posting. If you'd like, you can set an alarm. Once you are ready to apply, just read it carefully. Make sure that your resume looks good. Include your resume and transcript. Unofficial is totally fine. And then submit, and that's it. The RSVP that I mentioned earlier is at the very bottom, so please take a picture of it to make sure that you complete it if you didn't before this event. All right.
I guess we can go to the questions.
Yeah. Are there questions now?
Questions?
Yes. Yeah, I have one.
Taking pictures now.
Yeah, I have one. Let's say during the interview we see a problem that we already saw that from before. Should we tell that the interviewer? And let's say if we tell that to interviewer, will it change like the interview? Like will it change the question, or he's still gonna continue with the same one?
Okay, the question is, in the interview, if we see a problem that we already solved before in the interview, right?
Yeah.
Should we tell the interviews that they already asked this question? Or
Oh no.
just
We already see this question from before, not the interview.
Not the interview.
Yeah.
So the question is, again, I'm starting from the beginning. If we see a problem from before, outside of the interview, like we already solved the same problem, should we tell the interview that we solved that problem, or we just need to like continue with that problem?
And if we tell them, will he change the question, or he's still gonna continue with the same one?
If we tell them, is there like they will change their idea or something? I guess that's the question, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's a,
that's a great question. So definitely tell that you solve that problem, and you know how to solve it. You can describe how to solve it. If it's really difficult, because I know a friend of mine who had heard the problem which she was asked, he told that he solved that problem, but they still asked him to like because there was a real complex problem, and they wanted to make sure that he understands how it solved, so like memorize. So, but usually I think they just ask you another problem.
Actually, no, I think they'll pursue with that because just by saying I solved this before, they want to be able to see that you have and can. So they'll very likely stick with the same question, and if you've solved it already, then kudos. It should be a much easier interview for you.
Yeah, and it will just show your Googleness.
Yeah.
Honest are you?
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Other questions, guys? Should have some. Really? Yeah, I mean, I have some questions.
Yes.
Okay.
You mentioned Python is one of the languages is important, I guess, for you guys. So, learning object-oriented Python is must, or just like a regular Python? Because object-oriented Python like object-oriented Python is somehow ambiguous. So we should learn object-oriented basics in like Java or C++, or we just go with Python object-oriented.
So, starting your preferred language, let's say if you're really familiar with, let's say, Scala, which is not very common programming. It's still okay. Tell your recruiter that my preferred language is Scala, it should be fine. They're gonna find interviewer who's really good at Scala. But still, Java, C++, and Python are recommended. So regarding Python, I believe you should be able to know object-oriented basics so that you will be able to implement any of the data structures that you may be asked for with the implementing things in Python. So I hope you will be able to implement it.
Mm-hmm.
So another question, guys. You mentioned memory management and thread processing. What exactly does that consist of?
So what exactly memory
Management. And
memory management and thresholding
Thread
consist of in your
interview.
interview? I mean,
Yeah. So memory management is you can think about it as the complexity of your memory. How much of the memory does your system take? If it's something that should be treated as a stream or live, and you don't have much of space to store it, so you have to think about the solution where it's like doing something online, like as you go. So sometimes they just interviewers, if you tell them solution, they say, oh, what if you don't have that much space? How would you solve that? Does it answer the question?
Yeah. Thanks.
Do you have any questions regarding resume?
there was one question, please. So the internships that have been done in like academia will be evaluated as well as like internships as in industry. I guess that was a relative like skill set they've been used, right? Like programming languages, algorithms, and data structures.
Absolutely. I know that wasn't very clear, but if you participated as a TA, a research lab, anything of that nature, absolutely put that on your resume. Our theory is that if you can teach it, then you know it.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, I have one more.
Yeah.
Nobody that's interested. So, you mentioned that I guess 6 different jobs for us, but do you have any other jobs? Because I know, for example, Google has DeepMind inside, pay free, bot company DeepMind, and those related with academic research as well. So do you have also open positions for that for undergrad students, like new undergrad students?
So all those opportunities are under the Alphabet umbrella. I'm sure you've heard that we've moved into a bigger company called Alphabet, and those opportunities are directly recruited for by the company itself. So this presentation is only to work under the subset, which is Google. If you were interested in other companies under Alphabet, you would have to actually go into their websites to look for the careers they have available. I'm not fully familiar of what they're looking for and what level of experience you have to have for them.
So if you do have some background, let's say in machine learning or data science or neural networks, you can apply for a software engineering position, internship, or new grad full-time position, and then during for internship matching process, where you're looking for a team and they're looking for your team. So it's a matching process where they look at your resume and at your skills and your preferences as well. Same for full-time employees. So for full-time employees for new grad positions, you go to an interview to just a generic software engineer position. You're not going to the team yet. After you get an offer, you will be placed into GMatch process. So they for your preferences, what do you like, what are you most proficient with, things like machine learning, and then we're trying to find you a team that suits your interests and your technical skills.